Hello and welcome to the Freedom Podcast with me, Josh, and we've got G back with us. G, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing fantastic, Josh. We're having a celebration for this past weekend at Cheltenham. Our church there
Come on, Cheltenham.
into their new venue, had a big sort of launch, incredible response, biggest they've ever seen. I mean, just fantastic. So yeah, that's only about 45 minutes to an hour up the road from where we are. Cheltenham, lovely, beautiful spa city in England, and we are seeing the gospel go forward. Come on, Josh.
So great. We had this church started, a number of years ago now. It's actually part of our 10-4 vision, and it's been doing great. It's been ticking on through the years. Obviously, COVID was a big factor of kind of maybe slowing things down a little bit. But they got a new venue about 6 months ago, and this was just a great opportunity to really take the church to the city and say, hey, we're here, we're open, this is a place for you, this is where you can find your people. And so the guys just went and attacked it, didn't they, over these last few months, and just got ready, prepared. The venue looks amazing in this school. And I know even to last week, there's been some flooding in England, and they had flooding at the school, and it destroyed some of the carpets, and they had to close the kids' rooms. So I know that they were then scrabbling in the last minute to try and pull everything together and just bless the team. And, the guys just in Cheltenham are incredible, pulling it off and still making it happen, because I saw some of the footage and it looked brilliant. You wouldn't have guessed that they've just been through this really difficult patch.
They've done so well, because when you've got this big lead up to that launch, so much work goes into it, gone for double events. It's like audacious. This is audacious faith. And then they've got the challenges of having a washout. I think the kids' rooms, that's where they were flooded. So it's like, what we're going to do? But just the way I think all of the church there, the teams have managed it. Just so proud of our church, of our people, of Andy and Em, who are pastoring that church there. They're, hard work. Again, we mentioned this last week, didn't we? We said it takes hard work. And I bet if you ask them, there's a lot of hard work, but they are celebrating what they saw this weekend, the amazing response, and just the diversity. Andy was saying to me, the diversity of people that came in from a whole cross section of life. And isn't that what the gospel is great about? And I love our church for that, is that we are so diverse, in cultures, in sort of backgrounds of people. I think it's something that's always been on our hearts, that we're not just going to be for a certain group or a certain class, but we just see in the whole thing mixed up, and with people are finding their place and they're finding their people together. And I love that about the gospel, the kingdom. It's very beautiful to see.
Definitely. But one of the things I think is amazing about the team, and Andy and Em as well, is that there's this resilience, isn't there, to keep going, to endure, to be resistant to some of the challenge. And that is a great quality, isn't it, of any church planter, any leader, is you got to have some resilience, because it doesn't all go your way. And I think sometimes we can get a bit caught out by the fact that, I just thought, we had the goodness and favor of God just chasing after us, and all the doors were going to open, and actually there was a battle going on.
Yeah, especially when you're advancing the kingdom. That's a spiritual thing that you're doing. So it's not just a case of, let's get a bigger building, let's get the school, let's increase our capacity and double what we're doing. It's not uncontested. There is a contest for it. And I think that we have to realize this, individually as believers, the way that we follow Jesus. Before you are following Jesus, and maybe you have no Lord of your life, in a way, there's not a lot of contest, because you just live for yourself. And the way that works is that you please yourself, make your own decisions, you make your own mistakes. But when you follow Jesus, the enemy doesn't like it. And that's why straight away you become hot property. The enemy is out. He's out to distract you, to discourage you, to tempt you, etc., etc. And so whenever we take a step forward, whether that's corporately as a church or individuals, I think this is what we've got to understand. And you mentioned the word Josh, about that. What we have in ourselves, that not the resistance, but the
Resilience.
resilience, which is an amazing word, I think, resilience. And we would all love to have that, but without a cost. But I think to really build resilience costs you. You can't get it free. You can't just sort of turn up and think, I'm a resilient Christian or I'm a resilient church. And
Right.
and I know you ask Andy and Hem who are leading Cheltenham, hey, how there's resilience, but you ask them how they got resilience. They have had to, and I always think about the reservoirs of resilience. You store up a reservoir of resilience, as in you put a pipe into it and it runs off. How do you get it? You get it from facing things and coming through it the other side and going, right, that was tough. It made me a little tougher. That's resilience. Is I've come through, and it's perhaps next time I could go a little further. I could go maybe I don't know, take this further than what I've done before. And that's how resilience works. Really, is going through that stuff, and you build up a reservoir of resilience through what struggles, trials, hardship. And it's when you're in there, that's how you draw from it then. So when you're up against it, it doesn't come from out of like thin air. It comes from what you have invested and banked in the reservoir through past experiences. So you say to yourself, we've been here before, and it feels discouraging, or it feels like, is there a way, can we manage to get through? But no, we've been here before. And those are those reservoirs. So you draw from it. You draw the encouragement when it feels like you're up against the odds, or have we got what it takes? I think that's such a big question many of us keep asking. Have we got what it takes to get through this, this challenging point in our life? Maybe there's a work challenge, maybe there's a family challenge, maybe there's a marriage challenge. It's like that you need resilience. And that's that commitment and conviction that come together with resilience. They partner together. You don't just get resilience without a conviction. And the conviction is, I've got something in me that's going to say, I'm going to keep pressing through. I'm not going to cry off and sit in the corner and give up. Resilience is, we're going to find a way. So their place is flooding. I think the week before it was like, we've invited all these people and we've got nowhere to put the kids. And this is what you want to do, is you want to be able to have a great provision. You're showcasing the church by saying, hey, we're all ready to go, and the people are ready to go. You can't control the floods. And they have this extreme sort of weather that just floods through the school, and is like, you're going to have to change your plans. But resilience says, we'll find a way. And that's what they did.
Come on. Yeah, absolutely. And I think another picture that comes to mind for me of this is about how when we start when we start anything, we don't just kind of naturally have resilience. It's usually through a hardening process. So, if you think about kids and doing, I don't know, a new thing or coming up against something, they're not like, oh, wow, this kid's just so resilient all of a sudden. It's like that it usually takes a build up over time. My kids tell me all the time, they'll do something twice and be like, I can't do it. And it's like, okay, guys, we need to harden you a little bit. We need to build this up. And the picture that came to mind for me was when I used to play bass, and when I used to be in the worship team. And yes, the rumours are true. I did used to lead worship with a bass. And
that thing was a weapon, Josh.
It was.
It wasn't just a bass. It was the way you swung that round. That's right. A weapon.
Yeah. So many people don't realise that there's a double use here of that. It's an instrument and a weapon. Let's go. Anyway, but one of the things that, as these baby soft keyboard hands started to use a bass, they were I would blister so quickly and start to hurt my fingers because there was no resilience, and the hardening happened over time, and you get little pads on the end of your finger where it's like the skin has become tough. But that you don't just get that, you can't buy that. The only way is the hardening process has to happen. And I think about how, for those of us that, we want more resilience, well, you can't really do that without the hardening process. You've got to start strumming and start almost going through some of the stretch and maybe some of the discomfort to get the toughness that you need. And that as well is a repetitive process. You just got to keep going, keep strumming, keep moving through it. And that's how that hardening process happens. And I think there's a spiritual parallel with that too, is that actually we've got to keep moving. We've got to keep practicing. We've got to keep building that rhythm. And as we do, we will get harder. Just don't stop playing.
Which, what you're talking about really, Josh, is discipline. So, conviction, all of that, it keeps you going. That's the thing that drives you. But you need discipline. Discipline is, I'm going to keep doing this
That's
even
good.
when your fingers bleed. You have to push past it. You have to push past, because there's something on the other side of it. So when you're not just taking the punishment for the sake of it, there's a prize on the other side of it. So resilience is, for Cheltenham, for our church there, what they did, the prize was the new families, the new single person that came in that has felt alone for the last 6 months comes in and says, do you know what I found? I feel like I found family. And it's like, that's what they're pushing through for. That's why we're going to overcome this.
Really good.
We're going to go double rather than single events. And we're all going to get up earlier. We're going to work hard. It's going to cost us. Why? Because of the reward on the other side. And they've obviously launched, but now in the coming months, there's going to need to be that resilience, because we can do things sometimes for a few weeks, but for every one of us, it's like, yeah, but can you do it for 2 months, 4 months? And that's that hardening, as you said, of the skin. When I was 16, 17, I used to box. So I used to go boxing training, and I'd get in the ring and, have a spar with someone. The very first time I did that, I first had a really good fight with someone, and I came out of it feeling, I did
like
well
a warrior.
there. Yeah, warrior. Didn't get hit too many times, and it was like, seemed quite that I did quite well, and he was more experienced. So I was like thinking, yeah, I got a few good punches in there, until because I won the round, and when I went after that, they said, "Oh, stay in," and his big brother came in. And that big brother,
That is so.
I found out after he was the county champion. he took me to pieces. And this is early on in me fighting. And I'm telling you, I was bleeding from like my nose, my mouth, my eye, like above my eyes here. And you didn't have sort of head guards in those days. You just got in there. So I came out of that. I couldn't believe how much my face would bleed. So in the coming weeks, you have to get back in the ring. You see, resilience. You get back in the ring, even when you feel like I took a beating, and I thought I got to get back in the ring. And as I did it over the coming next 2 months, I got punched the same way, but I stopped bleeding in the same way. It was occasional, because my face wasn't it wasn't used to sparring and being hit. And I thought it's like your fingers, Josh, with the pads. It's like, it's amazing if you're used to getting in the contest and you're getting in for adversity, you train yourself for it. Right. And to encourage, like, perhaps some of our listeners right now, I think sometimes when you step up, I think we feel sometimes we're not going to be contested. But when you step up for the things of God, when you step up for truth, you step up for the kingdom, there's going to come a contest. And some days you're going to feel like you got whipped. But I want to encourage you, because it's like, no, get back in the ring, get back in the place of the contest, because you will find each time you do it, you become match hardened. You become more ready. And those punches that surprise you, because sometimes there's a lot of blood, but you're not that hurt. It's amazing how we sometimes cry off. But it's like, if you just focus, you get back in the fight. And maybe there's some people who need to get back in the fight after being, I don't know, they've got discouraged, they got disheartened, and God is saying, come on, build that resilience. I'm always amazed how much capacity there is in people. God
Yeah.
put within us a capacity of faith, a capacity to keep going. It's like incredible how much we can endure. Speaking to someone recently that's been through a really the most difficult season in their life, and they, it could have, almost finished them in the sense of I just can't see a way forward. But they said, do you know what? As I kept focusing on God, as I got up every day asking Him for help,
Mm,
I can't believe how much we are able to actually endure. And God says, doesn't He, that He will not put us through more than we can
that's
endure.
right.
He'll always provide a way of escape. But what He's saying is, you've got to step up to the fight. You've got to step up to what you're overcoming, whatever that is. And there's a resilience. There's a resilience that He can build in you, but you do it by stepping in daily,
Mm.
weekly. You'll be amazed at what God can do through you.
And I think holding on to resilience, like why do you, even the word, we've talked about some things of almost going through pain, whether it's being hit in the face or, something like building up blisters on your fingers. No one wants to be resilient for the sake of resilience, but it's because you want to be able to play music. It's because you want to be able to win a fight. And I think I think that that's the important determinant. You can't just be like, I want to be more resilient. You want to be driven by the vision, driven by the hope that brings change, that causes you to keep going through whatever it is you're going. So that's what you need to remember. If you're thinking, oh, I'm frustrated at myself, I'm discouraged about maybe I should be more resilient than I am, I would just encourage you, don't just try to be more resilient. I think be aware of that, but also keep your eyes fixed on where you're going. If you can get those eyes on, this is why I'm doing this, this is why I'm enduring it. I think that is a key to great resilience, is that you don't get distracted by looking at, or like if I'm there staring at my fingers thinking, oh, this really hurts, I don't pick up the bass guitar again. But if I
Mm.
think about, I've got this song that I want to do with the church this Sunday, is that, and I want to be well practiced. I want to then I pick up the bass. That's what drives me on. And I think for all of us, don't get it almost consumed by the pain or the kind of the difficulty or of the resilience, but actually keep lifting your eyes up from the hardening and keep looking to why you're doing it.
Yeah, and what you're talking about is really leading yourself
Right.
in resilience, because you can either face things and think, oh, I don't know, I've encountered this difficult relationship I'm in. Maybe I've got a difficult boss. I don't know, I'm going through some things, and it's like, I'm just going through and building resilience. That's not intentional. Use what you're talking about as be intentional with what comes into your life to build resilience. So when you recognize it, it's like, right, I'm coming through. So when I got back in the ring, you don't just get back in and think, I'm going to do what I did last week. I made sure I actually had a greater guard up against my face because I was too open, because I was overconfident. So then when I went back in, I learned what it was to defend more.
That's
And
good.
what you do is you lead yourself in it. So it's not just I'm taking the punches, I'm going through, aren't I good? No, there's something about leading, learning, evaluating, and saying, actually, there's a better way of doing this to get to the end result that we want. And that, I think, a great one you mentioned as well is like parenting. I think about when we had our first, which is you, Josh. No one really prepares you for it.
Mm,
You're sort of suddenly, you go into the hospital. We come home with this little tiny person, and we've never done it before. And they trust you to get in the car, go home, and you're meant to know what to do. And if you think about every parent, you're thrown in, and then you've got to not only look after that little baby, but the impact it has on, not having the
Right.
sleep you used to. We were both used to being single. So I think, especially for the first time parents, it's a shock. It is. And what do you have to learn? You're going to have to learn a resilience, because there's this little person that is going to demand everything from you, and all you did before was take care of yourself. But this is your charge. This is your little person you're going to love and raise. And I think that's where I've seen, again, young mums coming into a place, and at first they're overwhelmed. But it's like, do you know what? You can do this. And as they journey, at the beginning, they feel they don't have what it takes. But then they discover, because they love this little parcel, they discover resilience. And parents, they change. And I think so much resilience is causing change to our lives, so that we can lead through it at times when you don't have much sleep and you're thinking, I've been up all night and I've got to go into work first thing this morning, and still deliver. And yet the resilience, it builds character in you, because that's what resilience does. It builds the character. Character gives you staying power, so you don't cry off. And I think it's something that God, he says about, there's a scripture that says, you need to persevere, which is obviously this, endurance. You need to persevere and endure to fulfill the promise. And it says you need to. Paul says you need to. It's not like an option. So if you really want to receive the fullness of God's promise and, for your life, you've got to endure and persevere. And to persevere, you need to tap in to those reservoirs of resilience, because that's how you persevere. And
Really
that's
good.
to attain the great promise. That means that you can, if you don't persevere and you just think, oh, it's too hard for me, you won't actually receive the full promise. And so I think it's that what you're talking about, having the focus on, no, there's a song in me. I've got a vision for that's going to drive me forward. I've got a conviction. So I need the discipline to overcome the pain or the cost. And then it's getting that, because you've got to seize the promise by persevering and enduring.
Yeah, and I was just thinking, G, about, when I've led through the years and I've seen people who are not resilient. I'm not quite sure what the word is for that, but that they're quick to, I don't know, tap out or to step away or to give up. And I think that there's something that is a particular trope or kind of phrase of our generation, which is like, you've got to look after yourself, self-care and all this kind of stuff. If you're being resilient, it doesn't always look like, self-care. Like if you're getting back in the ring, it's like, that's not good self-care, G. Like you're going to get hit in the face again. If you're going to start picking up that bass, but your fingers are aching or like hurting, it might not be great self-care. And of course, there are moments where, we need to take rest or, and recover. But if that's always our disposition, just as we're starting to build up that resilience that we need, is that our tendency is maybe to lean out. And I think sometimes that there are people that are robbed of building up that hardness, that resilience within them, because they too easily opt out from the difficulty. And actually, you need to go back to that place, live in it, get stretched by it, because that's what's going to create in you the resilience that you need to endure, not just through what you're going through now, but in the difficult things to come. And I think so many people miss out on that opportunity because it's like, oh, that's just I need to just, take some time for me. Actually, you need to get back in there, because that difficulty, that endurance is exactly what's going to harden you and make you stronger.
I think what I've noticed, if I listen for every situation, but I've noticed that if people have had quite a privileged background, and I would sort of go as far as say like they've been quite spoiled, so they haven't had to suffer for much, they haven't endured much hardship, it's very hard then for them to have resilience. Because if you were used to living a life of comfort and self sort of, I don't know, satisfying, as in, oh, that's a bit hard. Don't fancy that. I don't want to put myself in that situation. If you've come from the background of not having character trained in you because you were provided so much, you don't really have to, go and earn that or make it work. It's very hard to then find that desire to, be get in there and have resilience because it comes through hardship. And part of that is entitlement. So if you come from a background, and this is why the Bible says about, be very careful how you raise your kids. If you withhold discipline, it really is like you hate them. You're spoiling them and think you're giving them the best. But what you're doing is you're not training resilience or a character within your children. So it starts right there. And for us, then growing up, if we were not disciplined, so that's it goes in line with being spoiled. So we're not disciplined. That's what the Bible refers to it. It means that we're not used to being told no. Well, a lot of hardship of enduring and coming through resilient is when you get the no's in your life,
Right.
No's to what you've prayed for, no's in your career. It's like you need resilience. What about I was hearing about a very famous songwriter he's now got, I think, some Grammys and all this stuff. But at the beginning, he did 300 songs and only one of them was actually considered like in a year. So he wrote 300 songs, but now he's of success. You need some resilience. And if you're coming from a background where, your parents didn't like to say no to you and you got, because, they wanted you to have everything. They haven't set you up well at all. And I think that's why it's so important. And the Bible says, if you spare that discipline, you spoil the child. And spoiling is when something can be ruined. And there is, it just basically makes it very hard for that person then, as they become mature, to find resilience because they haven't been trained in it. So it's very painful. Their skin is very soft. And when they face it, they feel overwhelmed because they have entitlement built in. It's like, well, I expected more. I didn't expect to have to work this hard. I didn't expect to have to dig deep. I thought, I'm used to getting what I ask for. And I think that, just to encourage people with even parenting, discipline, healthy discipline, biblical discipline, you are training your kids around resilience.
Right.
You're training them to persevere. These are almost untalked about gifts, but you got to think about how can we be intentional about raising our kids in a way where they got resilience. We're going to go on holiday, and we've done it, and Josh, where I remember being in the Isle of Wight in the summer, and it was some of the worst weather ever. Our tent was almost taking off. It was like the lanterns were swinging. We thought we were going to, not make it through the night. And I mean, that whole holiday was a challenge. But in it, I think it's just those things of saying, no, we're not going to pack up and go home. We won't go home. We are going to see this through. And all those things, I think it speaks about something in life. It's like the storms are going to come. Are you going to pack up and go home? Or are you going to see this through and endure it through? Because there's something you're learning through. Didn't expect this past Sunday. They had the floods. They're not going to cancel. They're set up. They're ready to go. We're going to overcome it this way. We're going to do it that way. And that's the beauty of this. It's getting it built into our lives and knowing that the prize is on the other side. But it takes, I think the example you started off with, the hardened patches on your fingers, to be able to sing or write the song that you want to sing. And you've done all that after you were involved in writing some incredible songs that we've sung in our church. And it's like, I think that is such a great metaphor for people right now listening. It might not be a guitar or a boxing match. there's something in you. God designed us a wildness within each of us as human beings, because God is a risk taker. And within that, he put within us this thing of there's more in me. There's more to create. There's a song to sing. There's a fight to be had. There's words to be written. There's an impact I can have on someone's life in another country. It's like there's something in me. You don't just get there free. You have to go through the period and develop resilience. So when the storm comes, you're stormproof. It's like, hey, we've been here before. And I love this about God is he never takes you in the deep end. He will just take these steps as you journey with him. And he'll say, right, okay, we've come through that. And then next month there seems to be another way is stretched a bit more. And it's almost like walking on the baby hills and then walking up to your Mont Blanc. It's like he's developing your endurance, and it's like, no, you got it in you. I got some places to take you. So I hope people are encouraged today that if you're going through some things, see it that God's developing something in you. It's not just, why am I going through this bad time? God has purpose. He's doing something in you, but so often we want God to get us out of it. It's like, Lord, rescue me, get me out. And he's like, no, keep sailing through. You got what it takes.
Amen. Yeah. And I'll just finish with these verses. In James 1, it says this, consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. And what a great promise for us all. Thanks everyone for joining us. Thank you, G, and we'll be back next week.